Hello and welcome to the Talk with Tariro. Today on the program we are looking at one issue which is to do with our young people of this day and age. Here when I'm talking about young people, I'm looking at adolescent boys and girls. Are we as parents playing our role as aunts, as uncles, anasekuru, grandfathers? Are we playing that role of giving adolescents the life skills, guiding them to say, for you to cope with the day-to-day challenges of life, this is what you need to do on a regular basis. We are even looking at the mannerisms that they need to do, even the household chores that they need to do, both boys and girls. So we are going to be walking that journey. Where are we going wrong? Because often people are talking about we now have a lost generation. And why is that generation being lost? What role are we playing? And to help me discuss this very contentious issue on the program, I have Ethel Mpezeni. She runs with the social media name. She is a social commentator, which made us to actually invite her on the program. And these are some of the issues that she runs. She also works with adolescent girls and boys. She has an institution. But today, really, I've brought her in as a social commentator because of the posts that I've seen her sharing with Zimbabwe and the Globe. Ethel, welcome to the talk.
Thank you, Tari.
Yes, it's not your first time on the program, but first of all, I want to hear from you. On Facebook, you're known as Chembere Good. What does it stand for?
Well, it was a name that was given to me by my friends because at first they didn't believe that I had a teenager who was, at that time, she was in Form 4. So they did not believe it. So they said, oh no, Chembere this age. So now we'll just call you Chembere Good because you don't look that old, but you're old enough.
So looking at the issue that we have today, as Chembere Good, you have a teenager.
Yes.
And looking at parents in general, in Zimbabwe particularly, are we giving proper guidance to our children?
To be honest, I don't think we are as much as we should. I don't know whether it's the parents being busy or people just not finding time to relate with their teenage children. Because, like they say, charity begins at home. So if you can't find time to sit down your child, even just to talk about general stuff like teaching them how to wash plates and what certain age do they need to start doing that.
You've talked about one issue about saying when we are greeting, they're supposed to be kneeling down. That's how we grew up.
Yes.
And we say time evolves.
Yes.
Should it still be the same? Because people often say, it doesn't matter anymore.
You know, it's a good question though. But I think it should still be the same. The same way that lobola is being paid is the same way manners should be instituted in children. They are supposed to be guided and be taught manners so that when they go to their in-laws, they maintain those manners and those in-laws will see that this child came from a family.
What does kneeling do? What does it
It's
portray?
a sign of respect.
Because when young people are actually watching, I'm sure they're looking at you and saying, does it matter? I've shaken your hand and now you want me to add the kneeling to it.
No, kneeling is a sign of respect. So when you're talking to somebody older than you can't exactly talk to them while standing and looking at the center of their head. That's the way we grew up. So it's the same thing when you're kneeling to an elderly person. It's a sign of respect.
And then the issue of verbal or signals as communication. You talked about if your mother just gives you an eye. For us, when we were growing up, you would know even if you do something and you get an eye, you would definitely know that I'm supposed to stop what I'm doing. But these days, when you talk to a lot of parents, when you give an eye to your child, you often hear, why are you looking at me like that? Why are you winking at me like that? Where are we missing the link?
It's because he's not used to that winking. But when you're at home and even when there are no visitors and you give him that wink or that look, the child will then know that I've done something wrong and mommy doesn't like that look. or that she doesn't like what I'm doing, that's why she's giving me that look.
How do we instill it? Because already what this is communicating is we have failed.
Yes, definitely.
So how do we redress that?
It should start when they are young, especially in primary schools, because when we were young, like I was saying before, we started washing plates. I think in grade 5, that's when we started. You start helping the maid. They are supposed to help the maid so that when they grow up, they know that when I spill something on the floor, you go and take the mop and you mop whatever it is that you've spilled. But these days now, parents will say, "No, auntie, come and wipe this. Jaden has thrown water on the floor."
You can continue.
So I don't see how that is helping that child, because when they grow up, they are then not able to do it for themselves. And at that time, I don't think auntie can want to come and clean up a 17 or 18-year-old mess on the floor. You see? So when you teach them at a young age, it's better for them that way.
There are issues of rights that often young people would then say, if you are asking me to do household chores, if you're asking me to do this other thing, you're infringing on my rights. A lot of parents are talking about having been approached by young people, by their children, actually giving those excuses.
No, you have rights when you have your own house. That's the way I run my household, and that's the way I grew up as well. So when you want to start having rights, you have your own home and then you have those rights. But when you're staying in my house, you will then follow my rules. Because if I want to mold you so that you become a better person, so that when you go out there, you're representing me as your mother. Because the first thing that when you do something wrong, it's the parent that is going to face the music, because they're just going to say, this child, Chembere Good didn't raise a daughter, so what do you expect, you see? So I want you to go and represent me in a good way out there.
And when we're growing up, we used to know that maybe during school holidays, you'd be sent kwambuya, you'd be sent kwatete, and parents would know this is where you're going to be. They're going to sit you down and really take you through some of the things that you often find challenging to talk to your mother, for example, about.
Yes, we used to go on holidays, especially every holiday. You know you're going to, like I used to go to my grandmother from my father's side most of the time. That is where I learned some of the life skills and life's ways of living in, you know.
Well, we'll continue with our discussion after the break. Join us. Welcome back as we continue with our discussion, where today we are looking at an issue to do with guiding our children. Here we are looking at guiding adolescent boys and girls, even starting when they are still quite young, in terms of just giving them guidance. This is how you lead life. This is how you behave when you are in the presence of elders. This is how you behave when you are in the presence of even relatives, senior people, wherever you are, either even in church. How do you behave as a child? And this is one issue that we are actually tackling. We often hear people, like I said in our first segment, saying when you are looking at this generation, it has become a social media generation. It has become a YouTube generation. This is where they're getting everything. Any question that they have, they know that they've got Uncle and Auntie Gugu who can give them all those responses. And often the responses that they get there, or the advice that they get there, often leads them astray. So we're really trying to explore to say, can we go back to our own culture as Zimbabweans, to our own black way of living, or Zimbabwean way of living, to ensure that our children do not lose those values that we used to have. I want to start off with one issue that is there. When we are saying we want to prepare our young people, we want to prepare our children. I've got a child, I've got a daughter, I want to prepare her for college. What do I need to instill?
You've got a daughter who is going away to college to meet different people from different backgrounds. So what that daughter needs to remember is where she's coming from. She is definitely going to have different views or opinions on how she does things, the way she was taught on how to do things. But that doesn't mean that is what she must take. She must always remember what she was taught at home and carry that with her wherever she goes, because there is no way your parent is going to lead you astray. But when you meet another a fellow teenager that was not taught, and you think that maybe that's the way to go, but that is not it, because sometimes not every child who is going to university is going to be raised by their parent. Some is a guardian, some are relatives or friends, but that should not take away what your guidance and the way you raised her. It mustn't take away anything.
But when they're at college, it's easier said than done. When I'm there, I'm in the presence of my age mates. And sometimes it's my first time to leave home. Maybe Form 1 to Form 6, I was coming from school going back home. And you'd be at home, you would know even if weekend I go out, I still have to come back to my parents. But now it's 24/7 with colleagues. There is the issue of peer pressure. There is the issue of wanting to experiment. So as a parent, often we then say, I've tried, but once they go out there, they meet all these other challenges. We do understand, when we acknowledge peer pressure is there, and it's quite rampant. And that's what often lead young people to then astray.
Yes, that is true. We can only do so much as parents, but that doesn't mean we should stop, because sometimes when we do it, it doesn't work. But we can try. At least when you try, you know yourself, even when something happens while at university, that no, you know what, it happened, but I tried. But what you can do is continue knocking sense into that child to say, no, you know what, and keep reminding them whenever you visit or when they come home for a visit or whatever it is. That's how you end up, it ends up sinking actually into the child's mind to say, you know what, my mother is always saying this. My mother, I don't think sometimes she can lead me astray, because some life examples, like I'll give you examples, there are some teenagers when you send them off to school and they are not able to, their parents are not able, or the guardians are not able to afford, and then they find somebody else to do that for them, even a boyfriend. You see, so, but when your child has got those things, and I'm not saying when they've got, there is no need to have a boyfriend, of course, but their reasons of having a boyfriend are different. So when you say to your child, like I say to mine, I can only do so much for you, and you must be grateful for what I do for you. It's not a competition when you go to university. It's not a must that you must have some of these things. You see, so that's why I'm saying you can only do so much. There is no manual that says this is what you say and your child will be on the right path. No. But as a parent, you can only try.
You know, when we talk about teenagers don't want to be crowded, and I can't even remember the time that my mother would then say, she doesn't want to be crowded. You know, it used to be, you walk, you toe this line, and you would walk that road that you are being told. And that's why I'm having a challenge where I'm saying, why is it now? It's almost like we are at the mercy of our children.
It's not really at their mercy, because then we didn't have social media. So sometimes they want to go on social media and talk with their friends, the friends that are out there, or even on their WhatsApp groups with their fellow friends. That is the space I'm talking about, overcrowding, to say no, they won't have time even just to have a chat with their friends and talk about, so what's happening over the holidays, you know, what have you been doing? They need to catch up, stuff like that. That is the type I'm talking about. So then we didn't have that. That's why they were all up in our faces, because there was no time for WhatsApp and social media.
How much time do they need with their friends? Because remember, it's from those friends where all these misdemeanors, you know, this kind of living, you know, you get to learn about this, the misbehaviors, all sorts, because they're talking amongst themselves, and often when what they enjoy, it's usually naughty things.
Do you know, too much of everything is not good at times. So it's not that much time that they should have with friends, but minimum time that you yourself as a parent can say, no, this is ample time enough for them to catch up and chat. But also as a parent, you don't want to be overcrowding your child, because you also as a parent have a life as well. So you need to balance to say, okay, now this is time for me and my friends. We can also hang out. And this is the time where I also hang out with my child to go watch a movie. We can catch up on what has been happening. So it's not that there is a time limit or a maximum time, but just enough time for them to also catch up with their friends, as just like we like to catch up also with our friends with what's been happening, you see.
How best can I discuss with my daughter, with my son, on how to start a relationship? And here, when I'm talking about a relationship, I'm talking about boy-girl relationship.
Normally, to be honest, I haven't really looked into that relationship with my daughter, because I always ask even my teenagers.
I'm asking you now because of the work that you do. You work with teenagers on a day-to-day basis. And where still you work with teenagers who actually fall pregnant whilst in school. And for me, there is something that has gone wrong there. So that's where, because you do interact with them on a day-to-day basis, I'm removing you from that motherly role. I want you now to talk about particularly the work that you do. So we are going to continue with that discussion after the break. Sit back. Welcome back. We continue with our discussion, where today we are looking at the issue of guiding our children, adolescent boys and girls, for them to learn life lessons so that they don't fall into life's pitfalls. Chembere Good, now I'm coming to you as Ethel. A counselor, a director of an organization that works with adolescent boys and girls, but mainly looking at the girls, especially where they face challenges of falling pregnant whilst in school, they're expelled from school. And I'm saying, as a mother, when you talk to them, where is the missing link, particularly when I'm looking at how do I start talking about starting relationships with my kids? Because there are some, one encounter, pregnant, out of school, and it ends there. And when you talk to them, no, nobody had actually taught me to say, if you do A, B, C, D, you fall pregnant. Once your period starts coming, this is what's going to happen. How do I prepare my child?
Okay. Normally, the first question I ask the girls is, what do you need a boyfriend for? What is a boyfriend for? That is the first question. And the answers that I normally get, that lead me then to say there is no need for a boyfriend. Because when you say you want a boyfriend because your friend has a boyfriend, or because that's what's happening around, or you can have a friend, a boyfriend that you can relate to a friend for talking stories, just the same way you can have a girlfriend. But then I always ask them then to say, okay, so now when you are with that boyfriend of yours, what exactly would you want to do with that boyfriend? And most of them will say, no, we'll just be talking. Then I say, so how then do you get pregnant when you are just talking? So then I can never say, because I don't think it's quite okay to talk about saying to your daughter it's okay to have a boyfriend. Because once you say it's okay to have a boyfriend, to have a relationship, okay, let me say to have a relationship. Yes. In a way, you're kind of like saying it's okay, because when you have a boyfriend, automatically he wants to have the cookie. So I will then say, but you are too young to be having the cookie issues with a boy. So if he says he wants to be your friend, you can talk. Okay, yes, we can talk stories.
But isn't it, we will be trying to run away from reality, because they are having those relationships. So I would rather be safe than sorry. Because to say to them, don't have a boyfriend, they will have the boyfriends. And they are actually having boyfriends. So how do I just guide them in terms of when you have your boyfriend? Because grade 6, grade 7, they already have those boyfriends, those girlfriends. So once you have that relationship, because shutting it out and pretending that it's not happening when we know it's happening, I don't think it will help anyone. So how do we
We are not shutting it out as such, but we are trying to discourage it. Because when you tell someone that, okay, when you have a boyfriend and your boyfriend says, if you love me, let's lay down. That boyfriend doesn't love you, because he can love you still and not lay down with you. So the moment you start discouraging them to lay down, or discouraging them to be in a place alone with a man, then they will start to understand what you're trying to say, especially with the ones that haven't done it. Now, once these girls start to engage, it's difficult to tell them to stop. It's very difficult. So, but when you start discouraging those that haven't done it, I'm sure we can help out of 10, maybe 5 or 4, which is a good number, than to say, no, let's just say, okay, when you have a boyfriend, buy condoms, do this, tell him, do you have a condom, let's do, It's not something that we encourage. We discourage, we're there to discourage so that teen pregnancies drop.
There's one issue that is quite, I don't know whether to say pertinent or what, but the issue of our totems, mutupo. When we grew up, I used to know if they call me Mwenewajo, so call, I had this pride, this totem pride that I had with my own totem. But now, even when I look at I remember one time I said to my daughter, Mamoyo, and she looked at me to say, who are you calling? And I'm like, are we losing it as well? Because it's one way of identifying ourselves.
It's also part of the guidance, because when you're guiding her, she should also know her totem. Just like I call my daughter by her surname or by her totem. And the way she knows, I'm so proud of being a Mamoya. Even on social media, I'm sure you've seen the way I rant about my totem, I'm very proud of it. So I also try to instill that in my daughter to say, no, Masiziba, that is your totem and that is where you come from. And that it identifies who you are apart from your first name.
Then one last issue. The issue of now that they've grown, preparing them now, because we know young boys would love to marry, young girls would love to get married. Just preparing them for that. Who does what within the family? What role does the community play? What role does Ana Auntie, Sekuru, Ambuya play? And what role do I play as a mother? What role does the father play?
Okay, when it comes to the teenagers, when they're preparing for marriage,
for the 24, 25.
For the female, it is normally the tetes, the ambuyas, and the mom also plays a certain part in guiding her, to teach her how to go and, like I mentioned earlier on, to say that what you're going to portray is what they're going to say, okay, so this is the background that she comes from. So it's very important for us. But now I don't know whether it's also fashion that they are no longer instilling that. It's just, no, they would take the girl and talk to the girl and they never talk to the boy, because long back, the sekurus are the ones that will take the boy and teach him how to be a good husband and what is required of him as a husband and when he becomes a father. But now, I'm not sure what the sekurus or the fathers are busy doing, that they're no longer guiding their sons. Because half the time we have kitchen parties and stuff, and it's only the girl that is being taught. But the man is not being taught how to be my husband. He's not being taught how to be a father to his children, which is it's a sad situation, really.
So what would you say is your parting shot to Zimbabweans, the community, families, our children, when you're talking about the need for guidance, for them to be upright Zimbabwean citizens, that even if they go to school in Canada or Australia, wherever, the Zimbabweanness in you should just show that positive side of you?
I would like to say, let us find time for guiding our children. Let's not be too busy, because this busyness issue, I think, is really affecting our children, because they are losing it along the way, and they are taking social media and Google to be their aunties and uncles, of which that is not the way we should raise our children. We owe it to our future grandchildren. The way we were taught, let's just carry the torch and forward it to our children.
Well, the way we were taught, the way we grew up, she has said, let's carry the torch, ensure that my child carries it, even so that it does even influence my grandchild. So until we meet again next week, I think the question that I'm posing to you is, what role are you playing in ensuring that your child grows up, matures, becomes a parent who is well-rounded, well-molded. Until next week, goodbye.